Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. Just got back from the Target Center where the Lakers fell 116 to 113 to fall down 3-1 in this best of 7 series. They lost this game on the margins. That is going to be the theme of tonight's show. 18 offensive rebounds for the Wolves, 3 fewer turnovers for the Wolves, 10 more field goal attempts for the Wolves, and 8 more free throw attempts for the Wolves. It is difficult to win any game when you are losing the margins like that, when you are losing the possession battle like that. I thought the Lakers' initial first shot defense, as JJ Redick talked about after the game, was good in a lot of situations, but their inability to keep Minnesota off the offensive glass, the inability to protect the rim, the inability to stop them from getting to the rim, and then once they got there, it was a lot of layups or second chance opportunities or fouls, and that's why Minnesota took 33 free throws today. But disappointing loss for the Lakers, a heartbreaking loss for the Lakers. They were up 10 entering the fourth quarter, and they had a real shot to win this one, tie the series 2-2, go back to LA with the momentum. It would be a best of 3 in that scenario, and then LA would have 2 of their 3 games back in LA. But before we get into the game, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. Shout out to the Late Night Gang. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Just as a heads up, I'm going to have about an hour. I am flying back from Minneapolis to LA tonight. I have a 9:54 local time flight, so I have to wrap up here at about 8:15 local time, 6:15 Pacific time. So I'm going to go about an hour. I'm going to try to go through my big picture takeaway, my 3 takeaways, stat of the night, notable performers, all that stuff, a little bit quicker than usual, and then get into the Q&A a little bit earlier than usual so I can answer all your guys' questions, because I'm sure there are many coming off of this game. But shout out to everybody in the chat. Appreciate you rocking with me. So Buha's big picture is the Lakers are losing this series on the margins, because if you look at it, if I told you just take away the final score, take away all the performances, take away everything, and I just tell you the Lakers make 19 3-pointers, the Lakers get to the free throw line 25 times and make 22 of them, the Lakers only have 10 individual turnovers, 12 as a team, and then we could throw in Luka has 38, LeBron has 27, 12 and 8. A supporting cast player outside of the big 3 finally steps up in Rui Hachimura with 23 points. Hits 5 threes. Felt like any time they left him wide open, or most of the time they left him wide open, he made them pay. If I told you all those things on paper, and Lakers have a series high in total points, but also in individual points in a quarter in that third quarter, they finally make the adjustment, benching Jackson Hayes after starting him to begin game 4 and then only plays 4 minutes. Well, I told you all those things, you would probably think the Lakers won this game. And if I also told you Minnesota shot 42%, and only 9 turnovers for them overall led to just 6 Lakers points. But this game, as I said at the top, the Lakers continue to lose on the margins. They lose with self-inflicted wounds down the stretch. We'll touch on the rotation and the decision, say the controversial decision to go with the 5 lasers to close the entire second half. JJ benches Jackson, goes with DFS. They play the entire 24 minutes. And certainly there was a cumulative effect in terms of fatigue, not having the same energy levels in the fourth and in crunch time. I don't think that's the reason why the Lakers lost, but that certainly contributed to that. And probably would have been nice to get couple of those guys breathers at some point in the second half. There was a moment where Gabe almost checked in late in the third, and then JJ eventually waved him off and just went with that group. And I get it to an extent, but I think ultimately when we look back on this series, when we look back on tonight's loss, like the series is not over. I know 3-1, history says it's over, and realistically it probably is over. I'm not going to deny that. The Wolves have won 10 of 16 quarters. I think they've definitively been the better team through the first 4 games. I think this has probably been closer to a 2-2 series than a 3-1 series. But we've seen, like, outside of game 2, the Wolves have tended, like, they've, in my opinion, have looked like the better team in their 3 wins, right? And this, I think it's closer to being a 3-1 Wolves series than a 3-1 Lakers series. I will say that. I think the Wolves have outplayed the Lakers. I think it's probably closer to a 2-2 series, but again, it doesn't matter what you think or how the eye test with the series. It matters who wins the game. And this was a game the Lakers should have won. I thought the warning sign for me was just watching the first half and took a bunch of notes, but even throwing all that out, like watching the game, it felt like the Lakers should have been up 8 to 10 points at halftime. Instead, they were down by 3 points at halftime, and they were outscored. I don't know the exact time frames, but they gave up they got one up 10 late in the first, give up a 6-0 run to close it over the final minute and a half. That swings the momentum going in the second quarter. Right before halftime, they also give up or get outscored by 6 going into the half. That swings the dynamic going into halftime. Now they're down 3 instead of up by a few points. And then they go on this 11-0 run with the Lasers lineup, the centerless lineup, whatever you want to call it. And they take back the game, and they're maintaining this double-digit lead. And then I don't even think they let go of the rope, because I know that there was a lot of mistakes, but it is tough to ask, especially when you are at a physical disadvantage, which the Lakers are. They are playing against a team that is bigger than them. They are playing against a team that is longer than them. They are playing against a team that is faster than them, that is more athletic than them. So, like, these guys, I think for the most part, were giving it their all in the second half. It was just, LeBron played 46 minutes and 14 seconds. Luka played 45 minutes and 49 seconds. Rui played 41 minutes and 9 seconds. DFS played 40 minutes and 37 seconds. And remember, basically half of the minutes came consecutively in the second half. So I think by the midway point of the fourth, I was becoming concerned that they were not going to have the legs. And I think you saw that at the end of the game. And certainly there were some mistakes. The inbounds play, Luka owned it. He said it was a miscommunication. Apparently, there were supposed to be 2 screening actions, one for Luka, one for Austin. One of those 2 was supposed to shake loose. LeBron and Luka had a miscommunication as to where he was going to be, and that led to that turnover. Luka was fouled on that play by Jaden McDaniels. They don't call it. LeBron, I think, fouled Ant. He claimed, after the game, he was saying he didn't. That's a tough one. It got reviewed. It ended up being, they deemed it a foul. That is a huge play there, because if it's off Ant and no foul, it's Lakers ball, and the game is, they have a chance to win the game. Now, with Minnesota getting that, that was a big blow there late. But to me, it just felt like LA's execution down the stretch. Like, there was a lot of short shots, and they generated some pretty good looks. Austin had a couple. Rui had one. And DFS hit a big 3, but then also had another one. And it just felt like Luka had a couple too. They got some good looks, and they just didn't make them. And that's sometimes how the game goes. I think they were far too 3-point heavy tonight. They attempted 47, which I would assume off the top of my head is the most they've attempted in a game this series. 47 of their 80 shots were threes, which by some quick math skills, 33 2-point shots. They went 19 for 47 on threes, which means, again, some quick math, 17 of 33 on 2-pointers. So they actually were finishing efficiently inside the arc. 17 of 33 is above 50%, somewhere, 53 to 55% range. And that's pretty good for a team, especially against one of the best defensive teams in the league, who again are longer. Some of those shots around the rim are tougher. Some of the shots just driving, getting downhill, like that's a bit tougher when you have Minnesota's ball pressure, when you have their length. I thought this was the best game from Minnesota in terms of being disruptive against the Lakers, with poking balls loose, deflecting passes. I thought Luka, this was almost in a way the best they guarded Luka, despite him having 38 points. Like he did what Luka does and hit some incredible shots, but like it felt like they were able to cut off drives, able to stick with him on some of his post-ups, and it felt like this was the smartest their defense has looked against Luka, in my opinion. And some of that's on him. He has to be better with some of the decision-making, but some of it I also think is, as you get deeper into a series, you start to figure out what your opponent wants to do. And I felt like with Minnesota, outside of the hedging and blitzing, which I don't understand, I'll touch on that in a second, like it felt like they had figured out the Lakers offense a little bit more in this game, kind of progressively. But down the stretch, I just think the Lakers once again were out executed. And we thought entering this series, based on these two teams' profiles of the ball handlers, the decision makers, their crunch time offenses in the regular season, Wolves are 23rd in net rating in clutch time in the regular season. That's not good. The Lakers were, I believe, top 10, top 12, maybe like 11th off the top of my head. So looking at these two teams in a clutch situation, you would favor the Lakers. And instead, it's now gone against them twice, where game 3, they're tied with 4:37 left. They got outscored 13-1. And tonight, entering the 4th, they're up by 10, and they get outscored 32-19. And bounce back a couple times within the quarter, regain the lead. There's the play where Austin hits the 3. Dante drives, LeBron blocks him. They get out in transition, early offense. Austin penetrates, pivots, reverses, sees DFS trailing, hits him for the 3. Lakers go back up by, I believe, 2. Like a few minutes left. And that was a big sequence. And it was also funny because Rudy had just come in, and the second Rudy came in, you saw the Lakers, or no, that was actually, I'm mixing that up. Rui hit a 3 with Rudy in there. But yeah, I mean, that was a big play. That was a big sequence. I think there was a couple of minutes left when that happened, and felt like the Lakers had a real shot there to win, even late with the Ant drive, and before they turned the ball over with the sideline out of bounds play. Like, just a lot of missed opportunities for LA, and I think that's going to be the thing that haunts them from this series, because if Minnesota wins this in 5, or even if they won it in 6, I think this series was closer than that. I think it should have been closer than that. But ultimately, we have the results. And in the playoffs, that's what matters, is the results. And if Minnesota wins this in 5 or 6, then like they ultimately were the better team, and the team that won it 4-1 or 4-2 or whatever it ends up being. But I think the Lakers have a lot of missed opportunities that are going to haunt them this summer if they lose this series, which again, it's not over, but of course, 3-1, we know the history. Wolves are now overwhelming favorites to close this out. They just have to win 1 the rest of the way. And even if and really with the way the Lakers have looked in the 4th quarter, like I would say Minnesota has looked better than LA in all 4 fourth quarters, including the game the Lakers won. They've had more energy. They've had more verve. They've had better execution. And I think that's the thing with the Lakers. Like, I feel like at this point, no lead is safe in the 4th quarter against the Wolves, because the Lakers are just running out of gas. They are running on fumes in these 4th quarters. Let's go to notable performers before we go to stat of the night. Notable performers, I'm going to start with LeBron, because I thought LeBron, people are going to talk about the 3. I thought it was not the best look, of course. He had the inbounds play turnover. I think it was more on the players, and Luka owned it again after. And I think it was more like LeBron said that they wanted someone to come back, but everyone went to the front court because they were afraid of, they only had a couple seconds to cross half court and they were afraid of the Wolves' pressure. But I mean, at best, that's 50-50. I would probably say it's 55-45 more toward the players on the floor to get open and to have time and situational awareness. A bit of a miscommunication. So you could also just say it's not really anyone's fault, but like, I know people are putting that on LeBron. I don't fully put that on LeBron. Then the foul on Ant, I was like, LeBron was disruptive tonight with his defensive playmaking, 3 steals, 3 blocks. I think that's the type of play, as he said post-game, that he does a lot. It kind of gets away with it. So while it's technically a foul, in that, like, I don't know, we just saw the Knicks-Pistons game, and sometimes you get away with fouls within the last 10 seconds of a close game. It's a physical game, but it gets called. I think it was the right call, to be clear. It's just that's a tough one. Once it got reviewed, once it got challenged, like I thought it was a smart challenge on Minnesota's part. But overall, LeBron, 27 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. He was everywhere. He was an effective low man tonight. He was protecting the rim. He was making plays. He can only do so much. He's 40. He played 46 minutes, played the most minutes on the team. Played, 25 seconds more than Luka. Like, got to the free throw line, season high 18 free throws, and a couple, there was a technical, there was a flagrant. So 3 of those were not like him drawing fouls per se, in terms of like the conventional way, but I thought LeBron set the tone from a physicality perspective in the first half. He was drawing fouls. He had 14 first half free throw attempts, and LeBron just did it all. And the last couple of games has been, in my opinion, the Lakers' best player, one factoring in the offense and the defense. And I thought tonight did, again, have some unfortunate miscues in crunch time, but I also think he probably should not have played 24 straight minutes in the second half. That's a tough one. Luka had 38 points. Playoff Luka was back in full effect, especially the first quarter. He had 14, I want to say off the top of my head. Played 46 minutes, 13 to 28 shooting, 5 to 12, 7 to 7 at the line. Only 1 rebound and 2 assists, and I thought the Wolves did a better job of either hedging and blitzing and forcing the ball out of his hands, which then led to 4-on-3 and 3-on-2 opportunities, which did result in Lakers baskets. It just was kind of neutralizing Luka's playmaking, or switching and then Luka going one-on-one and ISOing. So he did not have the same assist opportunities, and I think that was in part, or in large part, by design with Minnesota's defense, but certainly a symptom of the health of the Lakers offense, which has just not been healthy. If we were doing a physical on the Lakers offense, it's not been good this series. 4 turnovers for Luka, including, again, depends how you view that last one with the inbounds play, like who that's on. Austin had a really weird game, 17 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 of 14 shooting. 3 fouls in the first half, scoreless in the first half, 0 for 2 shooting. I thought actually played better defense than was being given credit for. But of course, as the number 3 option, cannot have a scoreless half and cannot have a half where your coach is going toward Gabe Vincent and Jordan Goodwin because you're just not playing that well, especially on the offensive end, and he's going in that direction. So really rough half for Austin. I think arguably his worst half. I think it's between game 1 and this first half, first half game 1 versus first half game 4 in terms of his worst halves of the series. But bounce back, hit some big shots. He had the step through late in the third to help push LA's lead to double digits. Hit a big 3 to open the fourth, hit another 3 in the fourth. So hit 5 threes. Like he was a big part. The last couple games of LA having 17 threes in game 3, 19 threes in game 4. But I think you could tell he lost his legs late in the game, had a couple of shots fall short, a couple of open opportunities, and 7 rebounds, though. He was second on the team in rebounding, which for a skinny 6'5" shooting guard who's physically outmatched by almost everyone on the Wolves roster, with maybe the exception of Mike Conley. Or I'll say Mike Conley's not, but everyone else has a physical advantage over Austin, and he still had 7 rebounds tonight. 4 assists was third most on the team behind LeBron and DFS. But weird game for Austin because he had 5 fouls, did have a steal, did have a couple blocks. Like I thought the defense was actually pretty good. It might have been his best defensive game of the series, but offensively they continue to just need a little bit more. And especially with how the rest of the group has been playing and functioning offensively, him at just 17 again, that's basically his average for the series. 4th leading scorer on the team. They needed more from him. Rui finally broke out with the 23 points, 9 of 16 shooting. His previous series high had been 9 field goal attempts, so took 7 more shots. 5 of 10 shooting on threes, 5 rebounds, 3 fouls, no steals and blocks. I think the good was the offensive end. He played with a certain level of assertion, and his shot was falling, and he helped a lot on the offensive end. Defensively, I think he was in the fray for some of the low man mistakes in terms of both offensive rebounds and certain guys cutting or getting to the rim for layups and just uncontested shots. So I thought it was a rough defensive performance at times for Rui, but he certainly helped on the offensive end. Jackson had a lob, had an offensive rebound, 3 rebounds, but 2 fouls in 4 minutes. He has more fouls than points in this series, and I think at this point he needs to be benched and not sniff the court again. It's just been a disaster of a series for him. No more Jackson. DFS, 41 minutes, 6 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, nearly had a triple-double. Missed a couple of tough looks, especially in the second half, and one in the fourth, or at least one in the fourth, I believe. But 4 offensive rebounds, the 6 assists, like his short roll playmaking and in those 4-on-3, 3-on-2 situations, I think it was sneaky important. He's always solid defensively. He was battling there against Gobert and Randall and Reed. Like I thought DFS overall, it's hard to ask more from him other than maybe him hitting a couple of extra shots. But 2 for 6, like, okay, 3 for 6 or 3 for 7, something like that you'd rather see. But I thought DFS was solid, all things considered. Gabe, 0 for 2. He just has been so inconsistent with his shot in this series. Only played 13 minutes. Yeah, it's just not been. I don't think it's been much of a Gabe series. Vando only played 7 minutes. Goodwin only played 7 minutes. I thought each guy, Vando, some of the decision making in the offense of spacing and the way that they guard him has been a bit problematic. I thought Goodwin came in and made an impact. Missed a couple shots, but had an offensive rebound, continues to play tough defense. I think he's gotten some tough foul calls against him. I would like to see him play a little bit more, and I think that's one adjustment the Lakers can go to. Stat of the night for me is that entering today's play, the team that won the possession battle was 19-3. The Lakers lost the possession battle again tonight, and whoever's won the possession battle has won the game in this series. And as I said at the top, -10 in terms of shot attempts, -8 in terms of free throw attempts, 3 more turnovers, and it just that was the game. Wolves got 14 more points in off fast break points. They had 1 extra second chance points. Lakers actually did a good job with the offensive rebounding. 7 extra points in the paint, 16-7 in transition points. So that all those little advantages for the Wolves, I think, added up to them winning this one. And then I'm going to breeze through the 3 takeaways here because I've touched on some of this stuff and just want to get into the Q&A. But first takeaway for me is the bold second half rotation change. So JJ had hinted after game 3 that he was potentially considering benching Jackson. We asked him before game 4 if he was going to change the starting lineup. And he said no, he was going to stick with the normal starting lineup. So a little bit of maybe a bait and switch there, or he thought about it and just decided against it. But for the second time this series, with the other time being game one, he did not go to Jackson to start the second half, goes with DFS. I think DFS should have just started in game four. I mentioned that coming off of game three, but it's 4 minutes. Now, when people say starting doesn't matter, I have an issue with it just because, for example, even with the DFS lineup, right? So Jackson plays 3-4 minutes, he comes out, then DFS comes in. But shortly after that, the Lakers are going to make a sub for potentially for Austin or for Rui, and that's going to change that lineup. And so while the whole starting doesn't matter, I think sometimes it is like it matters to the players, and it matters from like an ego perspective. It matters from a contract perspective. Sometimes like starters tend to make more money, so that is a real thing. There's a certain status level with being a starter. But my pushback with that is it does matter, because you could start DFS and get that lineup, which is their best lineup, 6 to 7 minutes to start the game, versus, and even push back when you're subbing out a Rui or an Austin. Or you can continue doing what you're doing, and then that lineup plays like 2 minutes in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden Rui's coming out, maybe for Vando, Austin's coming out for Gabe, and all of a sudden now you're going with a different lineup at some point. So I think they need to start DFS moving forward. I think that was a smart call by JJ. Potentially too late, obviously, but with how the game played, I wonder how things look. I mean, it was only 4 minutes from Jackson, but and they were +1. But I do think it changes the tenor of the game, in my opinion. But starts DFS and then just sticks with it for the entire second half. And I mentioned there was a point where he almost subbed in Gabe. I think what I would have done in that scenario would have been, I think you had to get, especially LeBron, Luka, and Austin as the three guys carrying your offense. You needed to get those guys a breather. LeBron is 40. Luka, I think, is in better shape than people talk about, but still is not in the tip-top peak, like 99th percentile shape. So 46 is a lot for him. I think Austin is a guy who sometimes once he hits a certain minutes threshold, his legs can become a little heavy and his shot can be a little short. So with the offense so concentrated on those three guys, I think they needed to find a breather for them. And I think Gabe should have probably come in for Austin at some point for at least a couple minutes, if not maybe 3. You could still play Austin 21 of the 24 or 20 of the 24, but get him a little bit of a breather. I think Goodwin and Vando could have come in for LeBron and Luka at some point, even shorter, maybe 2 minutes for those guys. And you stagger it, of course, right? I'm not saying you throw in those 3 all at the same time. That would have been a disaster. That would have been a mistake. But I think there could have been a way to, Vando come in for LeBron for 2 minutes. All right, Vando come out, LeBron back in. Now Gabe come in for Austin. Gabe's in for 4 minutes. Austin comes back in. Luka comes out. Goodwin comes in. Then 2 minutes, Luka back in. Like, there was a way to stagger it. And you are still then playing Rui and DFS, and 24 minutes with those guys and the load that they are handling in the paint right now, battling bigger guys and constantly having to box out multiple guys. Like, I'm sure that had an effect on them, though. I thought both guys hit some big shots in this game. It's just Lakers kind of ran out of horses. And that takes me to my takeaway number 2, which is 16 game players versus 82 game players. And I think this series was going to illuminate, and this playoff run was going to illuminate who belongs and who doesn't. And I think it's far too early to have that conversation, because I want to see how game 5 plays out. I want to see how game 6 plays out. I want to see how a potential game 7 plays out, also a potential game 6, before making any proclamations about the future and who should be here, who shouldn't, what changes they need to make. I think there's some obvious things. Like, I think they are one athletic wing short, like a 2-way athletic wing, a guy who can like a Nickeil Alexander-Walker type, a Dante DiVincenzo type, a Jaden McDaniels type. I'm not saying those specific players, but like they could use one more player like that within the rotation, a two-way wing who can rack a closeout, who can shoot above average from three, who can defend multiple positions. I think they're one guy short there. And then obviously there is a glaring, you could see it from outer space, the hole at center and how much of an issue that's been for them. It caught up to them in this series. It's been arguably the biggest reason why they've lost this series is they've had to go small for 95% of this series because they are starting a backup level center and it's been rough. So center and a wing are the two big things they need. But in terms of 16 game versus 82 game players, Luka's a 16 game player. LeBron is a 16 game player. I think we have a sample size on Austin that he is a 16 game player. I think this is the worst. I've said this after game 3. I think this is the worst matchup in the league for Austin. And he has struggled at times and he needs to be better. And I think he's going to, whenever this series ends, if it ends with the Lakers losing, I think Austin is going to have to self-reflect and look at some of the ways that he could have been better in this series and learn from it. I think this is essentially a big, this is the first postseason Austin has entered with real expectations. 2023, there were no expectations really for the group as a 7 seed, but for Austin especially. Last year, it's the rematch with Denver. D'Lo had become more of the number 3 option, even though, as I've said, I maintained Austin was better, and most people around the Lakers in the league thought Austin was better. Still, like, he was like the 3.5 and became the 3 throughout the series, but like not high expectations. This was the first postseason with high expectations, and I think he's been better than some people have made him out to be. Like, again, 17 points a game. It's not, they've needed more, but I don't think he's been like abysmal or unplayable. He has had some tough stretches defensively, being targeted by Ant, being targeted by Jaden, battling in the paint. And the shot making has not really clicked. It's either been inside the arc or outside the arc. He struggled within one of the two in most games this series. But I think it's just a really bad matchup for him. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards. That is a brutal perimeter group to go up against if you are a player who doesn't have the strength and athleticism advantages that certain guys have. And Austin has the quickness, and we've seen him expose bigs with that. But this has just been a tough series for him. I still think he's a 16-game player. I think Dorian is a 16-game player. I think the Lakers have probably had to rely on him a little bit too much. I don't think Dorian should be playing 41 minutes for a team that fancies itself a contender like in the playoffs. Like, I think he should be in your top 6 or 7. He should be playing 30 plus minutes or around there, but they have had to rely on Dorian a little bit too much. But I think Dorian's a 16-game player. Rui, I'm not really sure. Like, offensively, he's been the 4th best guy throughout the series, but some of the rebounding, the defensive decision-making and playmaking, I think it's been a little shaky at times. And it just sometimes feels like playoff basketball is a little too fast for him in terms of processing and seeing and reading the game. I think the jury's still out on that, but you know, I might put him as a half or 3/4 16-game player. Gabe, I think is fine as a bench guard in a 16-game setting, but I think you'd like a little bit more stability there from the shooting. Outside of that, I mean, we're at like 5.5, 5 3/4 players. Maybe like I think there's 4 I feel good about. Another 2 where I'm a little iffy on. It's been rough. I think the Lakers' depth was a concern post Luka trade and was a concern entering the playoffs, but we had seen certain stretches from certain guys where there was a level of optimism. And I think the playoffs expose the truth with the roster, expose the truth with the rotation. And while I don't agree with JJ's decision to play all 5 guys 24 minutes, in some ways it was JJ like season on the line, because if you fall down 3-1, your season's basically over. JJ showed like, these are the 5 guys I trust. I don't trust anyone else. I don't even trust Gabe to come in for 4 minutes to give someone a breather. Like, those were the 5 guys he trusts. He does not trust anyone else to a level to play them in the second half of a must-win game. And it's hard to disagree with him. Like, I disagree with the process in terms of, I think they needed to get each guy a 1 to 2 minute breather somehow. And even if it was 2 minutes each, 5 to 10 minutes between Gabe, Vando, and Goodwin, find the 10 minutes there. But I don't blame him for making some of these tough decisions. And then takeaway number 3, final takeaway before we get into the Q&A. It's game 5 adjustments. Quickly, I think they got to start DFS. I think that a big theme with DFS, Luka, and LeBron post-game is you got to take it one game at a time. So you can't look at it like you have 3 must-wins. You have to win game 5, game 6, and game 7. But you have to look at it as game 5, we're back at home. We've had a couple close losses. Got to win game 5. Force a game 6. Put the pressure back on the Wolves going home. Then if you can win that game 6 on the road, even if statistically you're still more likely to lose the series just based on, sometimes teams will go down 3-1, force a game 7 and lose it. Like, you would be back at home. You would have won a couple in a row. The momentum's in your favor. So you got to take it one game at a time. I think they should start DFS, bench Jackson, play the top 8. I think Vando and Goodwin have to be at 10 plus minutes each. Not maybe more than that, because it doesn't seem like JJ is going to do that, but like at least at 10 minutes. I think Gabe should be at like the 15 to 18 minute mark, and then distribute the minutes however you want with the rest of the guys. But at least like a combined 35 minutes with that bench group, instead of tonight being, with those 3, 27. And then you throw in Jackson, 31. Like, that has to be a little bit higher, probably closer to 40, let's call it. I think they have to touch the paint. They have to get downhill more. That's been a thing. They haven't done it. I think they need to target Minnesota smalls more and have those guys. They continue to target the bigs instead of the smalls. I don't get it. They have to find post-up opportunities for LeBron and Luka, and also bring those guys into the fray instead of just matchup hunting and then going ISO ball against the bigs. I think they need to, I would ignore Rudy Gobert to a disrespectful level. Rudy finally made more of an impact with the rebounding. He had 10 rebounds, including 7 offensive rebounds, but he was 1 for 6. He cannot finish. He brings the ball down. The Lakers, like, I would consider, honestly, this is wild, but like putting potentially Austin on him just to start and like force feed any possession Rudy is taking a shot, unless it's a putback attempt. And his one field goal was a putback dunk. Anytime Rudy's shooting, it's a win for the Lakers. Like, much is made about his defense and scalability in the playoffs. And certainly we saw when they went to the hedging and blitzing, the Lakers attacked that. And they need to do, like, they played that perfectly. The problem is Minnesota did it for a few minutes. Lakers killed them. Did it for basically the third quarter. Lakers killed them, and then they went away from it smartly. I don't know what's going on with Minnesota. I think they have their own things of Naz Reid playing 20 minutes. He did have foul trouble, but should have played more. Like, I don't get what they're doing, but that's, not my thing to figure out. But Lakers, I think I liked the approach of goading Randall into more ISO ball by putting Luka on him. I think they could do a better job of helping in certain scenarios, but I would rather Randall have the ball than Ant. Ant, best, have you touched on Ant yet? But 43 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. This was his best game, and he was the best player on the floor, I think. And I think they need to help more specifically against Ant when it's Austin or Luka. So if they get the switch with Austin or Luka, I think that's when you consider whoever's the closest help guy, potentially doubling or blitzing or shading over. So, you kind of force him to retreat or try to make a pass quickly. I think you probably got to live with, like, if it's LeBron, Rui, DFS switched onto him. I mean, you can't double him every play. I just don't think that's going to work. I think Minnesota has built in certain counters to that you got to mix it up. But I think when it's Luka or Austin, he's able to create enough separation on those step back threes that's where I think you consider the hedge or the blitz. And I don't think Minnesota has shown the execution level in those scenarios the way that the Lakers have. So with the like, you cannot do that against the Lakers. I don't know why Minnesota did that against the Lakers. If they kept doing it in the fourth quarter, the Lakers were going to run away with this game and win it by 20. But that would be another thing. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A here. I like how I said I was going to go quicker and I didn't. This one is from Tai Tai. Thank you for the super chat. ISO ball and smoked bunnies killed us. I agree. I think there was too much of both. Too much ISO ball. Like the threes they're generating are out of ISO ball, and I think it's a mistake just going this ISO ball, mismatch hunting heavy, and too many bunnies around the rim. I agree. Tai Tai again, no second half subs, shows how limited the roster is. I agree. Like I understand. I think, as I've said many times about many things, I often think two things can be true at once. It doesn't have to be black and white. I think JJ made a mistake by not getting guys breathers. I also understand JJ's rationale in not trusting anybody else, and especially those other three guys, thinking that they were offensive liabilities to an extent of not playing them in the second half. So I think two things are true. JJ could have managed that better. But this also has shown, and this series at large has shown, the limitations with this roster. Hi, Jovan, how you doing? I don't know if you explained it already, but could you explain why the Wolves were able to challenge the Lakers timeout and ultimately challenge during the Lakers timeout and ultimately losing a timeout? So I did not explain this yet, but the Wolves were able to do it because they challenged within 30 seconds of the Lakers calling timeout. So like the play happened, the Lakers called timeout, and then the Wolves basically, when you have that situation, you have 30 seconds to call a timeout. And the Wolves, I believe, had not challenged yet, or if they did, they still had a challenge remaining, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to challenge. But that was what led to that. In a weird way, like if the Lakers just inbound the ball and don't call timeout there, is it different? Like I don't know, but I'm not quite sure on if they were only able to challenge because there was a timeout or not. But obviously, if the Lakers were able to inbound quickly, it kind of not let Minnesota. Like Minnesota, I think could have just called timeout and challenge. But yeah, so my understanding though is I mean, they said it on the Jumbotron. It was because it was within 30 seconds. Jonathan Frazier, unfortunately, it's over with. Another LeBron postseason ruined with him not fully being able to exert himself due to prior injuries. That's been a theme since I've covered the Lakers, because I started covering them after the 2020-2021 season. And I can't remember, like 2021, I guess you could say he was healthy, though he did have the whole Solomon Hill situation with his leg and his ankle. And I think he got back to a pretty high level, but then you had AD get injured. 2022, they missed the playoffs. 2023, he's got the foot. 2024, I forgot what he was dealing with last year. And then this year, obviously, the groin/hip. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And to his credit, he played 46 minutes tonight. I thought he was the best Laker. I thought he was awesome in game 3, and it just hasn't been enough. And I don't put that on LeBron. Brian, thank you for the super chat. Having only 5 players worth playing in this series is not sustainable in playoff basketball and an indictment of the roster construction. I agree. I think even if the Lakers are let's say the Lakers had won tonight and ended up winning the series, or let's say they still win the series, they come back from 3-1, pull off the improbable comeback, I would almost, I think it's going to be Golden State, not Houston, but I would almost have to favor Golden State in the next series, depending on, there's some stuff with them, with how long does that series go? What's up with Jimmy? How healthy is he? Like, there's some factors, but assuming the Warriors are like relatively healthy and get through the Rockets in like 5 or 6, and the Lakers pulled off this like 7-game comeback, I would have to favor the Warriors, because I think the Lakers, again, we've seen it in all fourth quarters. They run out of gas at the midway point to late point of the fourth. These guys are on fumes, and they just don't have the reliable depth to, like, I think they're a player or two short. And I think it's probably the 2 players I mentioned. I think they need another athletic wing, and they need a starting center. And if they get those 2 things, and maybe you could swap out a player within the rotation, but they get those things, I think they're in a better spot. But yeah, I think right now, certainly the roster construction is concerning and being exposed. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. Unless AR becomes Kyrie soon, give AR a big contract when available, then trade him and get a genuine 3-and-D shooting guard who you can put next to Luka. Luka and AR played well, but not much different than D'Lo and AR duo, just better offense. I would contend that I think Austin is better than he was last year. I think Luka is, like, if we want to slot them, I guess, and say compare Luka to AR last year, way better. Like, I would, it's more appropriate to compare Luka to AD, not to Austin. But I hear what you're saying. I would say, like, I know Austin's getting criticized and getting killed, and deservedly so to an extent. He has not had a 0.0 for 7 shooting performance the way that D'Lo did in Game 3 last year, or a 6 for 20 shooting performance the way that D'Lo did in Game 1. He has not been targeted and played as bad of defense as D'Lo did in the first round series against Denver or the conference finals series. So, like, again, I thought Austin was actually largely good tonight defensively and was making some plays and some good rotations. So, like, I think there's just a baseline level of competitiveness and winning habits and winning attitude and mindset that comes with Austin that I don't think that's a fair comparison. But I hear what you're saying. Like, I think there is some overlap, and it is something that the Lakers have to figure out. However, the one thing that I quickly think about with this is Austin is likely going to opt out in 2026, and resign. If he resigns, then you're now like looking multiple years in the future. You're playing out next season, then he's opting out, and you can't just trade a guy who, remember, there's a different deadline, so he probably would be a January 15th guy for the 2026-27 season. So we're talking about like an extra year and a half before potentially trading Austin in your scenario. So I think if the Lakers are going to consider a bigger move like that, I think it would have to probably be sooner. So I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to play out that way. I mean, it could. Like, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think if the Lakers are making bigger moves, it probably has to happen this offseason or the following offseason, not another full season and then another, half a season, if that makes sense. Brian, what happened to organized offensive sets? I think Cran just tweeted it, that in all 3 losses, they've been under 50% organized offense. In Game 2, they were above 50%. And then I want to say in the organized offense, they scored like 1.2 points per 100 possessions, which is 120 offensive rating. It's amazing. And then freelancing, I think they're 0.5 something. So this might have been the biggest gap, I believe, between freelance and organized offense in terms of efficiency during this series. And it hurt them. They've been playing way too much ISO ball and drain the clock out and heliocentric basketball. And I think that is something that they have to, I don't think they're going to change it this series, unfortunately for them. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have a drastic change to their offense, but I think they've clearly fallen into some habits with the offense that are hard for them to break. They haven't broken them so far. I think in a must, like if there was some magic offensive button that they were waiting to push with the potential of going down 3-1, I think they would have pushed it. again, I'm not saying they can't make some drastic adjustments in game 5, but kind of feels like this is who they've been offensively, and the coaching staff is going to have to sit with this, learn from this, reevaluate, and then come in with a better and more consistent process offensively going into next season. Ty brutal JJ series. Yeah, I think the Jackson, they actually countered. They had the one play where, well, so Jackson got a lob, and then there was also a short roll play against, I want to say it was against switching, or it might have been high. Like, I haven't obviously rewatched the game yet. I want to say Gobert was either in a high hedge. I don't know if it was a full switch, but Jackson slipped. Luka hit him. Jackson got downhill. And I believe, I have it somewhere in my notes, I think it led to a Rui 3. Yeah, no, Rui layup. 3-on-2 for a Rui layup. So you saw like them counter Minnesota's base defense with Jackson. There was also another play where he got a lob. And it's like, right, a lob or a dunk, I don't remember specifically. But you saw like a couple of kernels of it, and then they just went away from it. So I like, point being, if you're going to continue starting Jackson, I think you had to go to more sets and more actions that were going to feature Jackson and leverage his vertical lob threat ability. They did not do that. So it almost just felt like having Jackson out there to kind of have Jackson out there. And I thought he's had some good defensive stretches in terms of switching and being big. I thought one thing I didn't even touch on was the defensive adjustment they did to start the game, where they put Hayes on McDaniels and Luka on Randall, LeBron on Conley, Rui on Gobert, and then Austin on Ant. And I thought that made some sense. Of that allowed Hayes to be the one closing out to McDaniels instead of Luka. Hayes is better at closing out. He's bigger, he's longer, he's more athletic. He can move his feet a bit better. So I liked that adjustment. And also he's contending with him then on the glass. With Luka, I think Randall, like, again, you're trying to goad Randall into going iso ball, take threes, take step backs. And I thought that adjustment actually made some sense, but just a little bit too little, too late with Jackson and how they were approaching offensively. So I think you should have benched Jackson going into game 4, if not honestly game 3, but I understand like wanting to give it one more shot. I don't get why he kept him starting tonight. Yeah, I mean, I think some of the stuff with Luka in the fourth could have been better in game 3, obviously with how they were functioning the offense. Like JJ said after the game, that if Luka's out there, he wants to treat him like Luka, but Luka clearly was not Luka. I think one of the issues that they've had, and this kind of goes back to the regular season, is like they have shifted things around Luka so much that they don't really have another pitch. And even when they haven't really had a LeBron heavy pitch, like LeBron has still been such a off-ball guy, catch and shoot, attack closeouts, sometimes post-ups, getting out in transition a lot. And it feels like they haven't had the, and part of that's maybe been him picking his spots a little bit, but it feels like the LeBron wrinkles haven't been as consistent as they should be in terms of them running the offense through him. I think Austin has struggled to run the offense this series, so I think they've gone away from that a little bit. So it's kind of led to more Luka heavy basketball, and it worked in game 2. There are stretches in each of the games it's worked, but it hasn't worked at a high enough level. And I'll be honest, like Lakers have just missed a bunch of good shots. They've generated a lot of good looks, and the role players, I don't know if it's a rhythm thing. I don't know if because they're not touching the ball, they're out of rhythm. I don't know what it is, but the role players have missed a bunch of good looks that had they had a hot shooting 2 or 3 game stretch. Again, we're talking about a 2-2 series, maybe a 3-1, though. I think that's probably pushing it. More likely a 2-2 series, and different vibes coming off this one. Lake Show, 1996. What in the Tom Tibbs was JJ doing in the second half? It's been trending this way because he has not trusted certain guys, obviously. With Jackson and Vando, I think, being at the top of that list to a lesser extent. Goodwin. I mean, clearly JJ has an aversion to guys who can't space the floor and guys who the defenses will ignore and hide guys on or play off of. So that seems to be like, I wonder, there's a lot of talk about this roster not being designed properly around Luka, but I also think it's not fully at the level that you would want around JJ necessarily. And that's something to consider with any potential offseason moves this summer. Okay, I got about 9 minutes. So I'm going to roll through some of these. Rock your world. Can we win the next 3? What's left to change? I think they can, technically. I'd obviously put that at like a 15%, 20% odds. And 20 is probably pushing it to be like 15%, 10 to 15%, somewhere in there. But there's certainly a chance. Like it's been a close enough series, again, especially looking at game 3, the first 44 minutes, game 4, the whole game. They just haven't been able to win the margins. I would say the big thing is changing the starting lineup, tweaking the rotation a bit. I mean, if they can run more organized offense, do some more 3-man actions with LeBron and Luka, get downhill more, get into the paint more. Defensively, I think they've been pretty good outside of the offensive rebounds, and then occasionally overhelping with some of the kick out threes. But yeah, I mean, it's looking dire. I'm not going to lie. Golden says need a center. Claxton would be a great fit. I agree. I think that Claxton is. I would guess that he's probably atop the Lakers list in terms of realistic targets this summer. So they've had interest in him before. So I would say he's certainly up there. Brandon Robinson, thoughts on a pregame show? I like the question, and the problem is I'm getting to the arena like 2.5 hours early, so it couldn't be that close to game time. I could do it on like my phone, but the quality is going to be worse. The audio, the video quality, etc. So that's a little bit of a hurdle if you guys would want one earlier in the games. That is something to take note of, and maybe I can do one for game 5 a little bit earlier, some type of Q&A or pregame show. Harry Chinani, play DK a few minutes. If you can get hot, will be a big boost. Bench scoring is awful. Yeah, so I made the point that I don't think starting the whole starting thing I think does matter. I also, for me, bench points isn't like the biggest thing, because I think you just look at the shot attempts and the minutes, and it was like they barely played like DFS technically. If you just swap DFS and Jackson, which I know is kind of cheating here, let's assume DFS started, Jackson was coming off the bench, played 4 minutes. There weren't many opportunities for the bench guys to score. I mean, they would have been a combined 1 for 6. I hear you though, and I know people have been wanting Dalton to play. I just think it's the inverse of the Jackson, Vando, Goodwin problem of he's a one-way player, and I think JJ's trying to find two-way balance as best he can right now. But maybe he gets desperate enough in game 5. Steve Stevenson, if we lose, Pelinka lost the series by not doing his job at the deadline and getting a center. My first thought was about defense. Now look at us. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I mean, it's the Mark Williams trade is a sliding doors moment, and I wonder how much, like, he's better than Jackson. He's a better rebounder. He is a better rim protector, not as mobile, not as versatile. They would have to play a different style of defense, more drop coverage, more traditional. But yeah, I think there was good intentions with the Mark Williams trade, and it unfortunately didn't play out well for the Lakers because of the physical. I think the bigger sin, in my opinion, was not having a backup plan, especially with knowing you were trading for an injury-prone guy. And there was post, and sometimes these things could be a little teams throwing stuff out there, but there was some post physical buzz of like, well, yeah, we knew if we traded for Mark Williams, he probably wouldn't pass the physical for us either. So if the Lakers could have had that foresight to be like, well, if we trade for this guy, there is a chance he doesn't pass the physical. Let's make a smaller move for another trade. And even if it was someone like a Day'Ron Sharpe, I'm not saying he changes the Lakers season, but like they needed another playable body that if Jackson Hayes was unplayable in a series, they could go to for like 8 to 12 minutes, and they just have not had that. And I don't even know if it would have been Koloko or Jemison. Like, that's another thing, converting one of those guys. But we're talking about potentially playing Koloko, Jemison, or Day'Ron Sharpe in a playoff series against the Wolves, and I think that's the status of the Lakers center spot right now. Stephanopoulos, the playoffs are exposing the redundancy of Austin and Luka and lack of experience for JJ. Really annoying, but next season was always the expectation. I agree on the Austin Luka redundancy. I think they got to figure that out. I agree on JJ and certainly can coach a better series. I also agree on the last point. Like, I think there is an unfortunate part of just the Lakers look like a contender, and now it looks like they're going to lose in the first round. And maybe some of that was fool's gold. Maybe some of it was luck. I don't know what it was, but it is unfortunate that they're losing the margins the way that they have. Sean, Jovan, this game crushed me, man. It's like game 2 versus Denver all over again. Very frustrating that we couldn't hang on to this one. Yeah, I would say game 2 might be worse in my opinion against Denver, but I hear you. I think this one's right up there. Like, this is the worst loss of the series by far for them, and one of the worst playoff losses that I've been covering since I've been covering the Lakers. George or Jorge, I'm not sure which one, so I'm going to shout out both. Would Mark Williams have made a difference in the series? I think yes, but I don't know if it would have made the difference to win the series. I think he would have been a big body that could have played at least 15 minutes. I think they would have targeted him on the perimeter with switches if the Lakers were switching with him, or just him in drop coverage, attacking him and his feet. But he's big. He can finish around the basket. He's a good rebounder. I think he would have helped. But I understand the longer term concerns with him of where he would have been in like 2 to 3 years. William, how realistic do you think Claxton is this summer? Would he be your top choice among the available options? It's tough to always put a percentage on how realistic someone is. I would say he is a relatively realistic. He's near the top of the list in terms of realistic candidates. Off the top of my head, I would say he probably is the best because of his switchability, versatility defensively. He's actually a better post defender than people realize. And then he's also a dynamic lob threat finisher. So I think he would check the boxes of what you want around Luka. The other guy that comes to mind is Daniel Gafford, which it would be hilarious if the Lakers circled the block and what it got Daniel Gafford after the whole Luka trade. That would be amazing. But I think he's relatively realistic. I don't know a percentage, like 25%, 30%. I always get aggravated. I get aggravated and aggregated when I put a percentage on things. So I want to be careful with that, but certainly a possibility. Steve Stevenson, no more one-sided players like Vando Connect, et cetera. It's just a waste of time at this point. The league has officially changed. I kind of agree with this. Like, I agree with it. I think you could maybe have like 1, maybe 2, but I think the Lakers have too many one-way players in their rotation in general, in the top 10. I think you could argue they have 5 one-way guys in their top 10, and that's just too many. They got to fix that next year. Emmanuel, thank you for the super chat. Gafford looks like a must this offseason. So you brought it up after I just mentioned it. Yeah, I think Gafford would be great. I still think, depending on what the Claxton package would be, the other guy I mentioned before, Steven Adams, he was a guy the Lakers looked into trading for at the deadline. He's a free agent. They could potentially get him with that taxpayer MLE. I think that would be a realistic contract for him. He could start or come off the bench, though. I think based on, if it's between him or Jackson, I'd probably just start him, but maybe they want to go Jackson placeholder, Steven Adams off the bench. But depending on the cost for each of those 3 situations, like that would impact how I view them. But Gafford would obviously be a really good fit with Luka. Danica, what do you think about people regretting the Luka trade? I think that's insane. This is not on Luka. He's a top 5 player, top 3. There's things that can be better with the defense, the conditioning, the decision making. Sure, you want to point to all that, but this dude's a winner, and I think this. Another part that I haven't even mentioned yet is the continuity and just like the Lakers' lack of continuity. I talked about it at the time, and I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer, and I know some people didn't agree with it, but there's a reason why you rarely see a team win a championship after making a monumental trade at the trade deadline. And I think we're seeing some of that. Certainly some issues with certain players and the rotation and the roster. And like, I'm not saying that stuff isn't there, but there is a continuity element here that like this Minnesota group is largely the same group. Like, yes, Dante and Julius, but most of the group is the group that made the Western Conference Finals last year and then also lost in the first round the year before. So like they have been in the trenches together. Some Laker guys have, Austin, LeBron, Rui, Vando to a lesser extent. He didn't play last year in the postseason. Gabe missed basically all last year. So like those guys kind of, but I think there's a lack of continuity here with some of this. Then a couple more here. Philip, thank you for the super chat. Just wanted to say what a season it was. Jovan, love your breakdowns and commentary. Happy for your growth. Yo. Thank you, Philip. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Season's not over yet. And there's much more to come from me on the coverage standpoint. Even if the Lakers, if they lose game 5, I will still have episodes next week. We actually just did the beat reporter roundtable yesterday. It was fun. We were drinking, we were letting loose. Probably have to edit some things out that probably shouldn't have been said on camera, but I'm probably not going to post it tomorrow just because I want to give everybody a chance to like decompress from this loss, but I'm thinking of posting it on Tuesday. But I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I appreciate the support. And last one from Fang Charlie. Sup, bro? We played well and I still have faith and I'm not going to complain about the season, but AR playing like we can pay him less and we have room to upgrade. Thanks for the content though. Late Night Gang for the win. Late Night Gang for the win. Yes, disappointing loss. Austin can play better. Apologies, but I do... I do have to go. I'm actually supposed to be doing a radio hit right now, and then I have to go straight to the airport after that. So I will wrap here, but I appreciate you all. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. I will be going... I'll either be doing a video tomorrow or going live tomorrow. I'm leaning more toward just going live and answering some of the questions with the chat that I wasn't able to get to. So I'll be on the lookout for me scheduling that. And I'll also do a post in the community tab. But I do have to go now. I do have to go to the airport. So I appreciate it. See, Vish sent a super chat. Thank you for that. But that'll do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those watching on, or for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. Apologies for the shorter show, not getting to all the questions in the chat, but I will be back tomorrow and can hopefully answer them then. Shout out to the Late Night Gang. Shout out to all of you. Appreciate you rocking with me. Season's not over yet. I know it feels that way, but there is still another game, first of 4. We'll see how the Lakers come out in game 5. I'll talk to you all soon.